the world where everyone else is counting down to their birthday, posting countdowns, planning parties, curating the perfect birthday aesthetic, some people just don't care. They wake up on their birthday like it's Tuesday. No fanfare, no expectations, no performance, and when you ask them about it, they shrug and say, "It's just another day." At first you might think they're being humble, or maybe they're sad, forgotten, unloved. But here's what psychology reveals. Their indifference isn't what you think. It's not depression or low self-worth. It's something far more interesting. It's a quiet rebellion against a culture that mistakes milestones for meaning. Let me tell you what's really happening beneath that casual shrug. See, most of us have been conditioned to treat birthdays as validation checkpoints. They're annual reminders that we exist, that we matter, that people care enough to remember us. The texts roll in, the posts go up, and for 24 hours, we feel seen. But here's the question. What happens when you don't need that reminder? What happens when your sense of worth isn't tied to a calendar date? That's where these people live. In a space where value isn't seasonal. Psychologists call this intrinsic validation. It means their self-worth comes from within, not from external celebrations or social rituals. They don't need the world to throw them a party to feel valuable. They already know they are. And that quiet certainty, that's emotional security most people spend their whole lives chasing. But it goes deeper than that. You see, birthdays have become performances. We've turned them into identity statements, the kind of party you throw, the way people celebrate you, even the number of happy birthday messages you receive, they all feel like metrics, like proof that you're loved, successful, worth remembering. And some people have seen through that. They've realized that most birthday wishes are reflexive, not reflective, generic, automatic. People who barely know them suddenly acting like they care, and instead of feeling grateful, they feel nothing, because they value authenticity over ritual. Research shows that people who downplay birthdays often score high in what's called social authenticity. They'd rather have one genuine conversation than 50 surface-level comments. They see the performance for what it is, empty, and they refuse to participate. There's a beautiful irony here. The world assumes that people who don't celebrate their birthday are missing something, but often they're the ones who found something, presence over performance. Think about it. When was the last time you experienced a moment without immediately thinking about how to frame it, share it, or celebrate it publicly? Most of us have lost that ability. We've been trained to turn our lives into content, our milestones into posts. But these people, they're living life in real time, not in captions. They don't measure their year in birthdays. They measure it in growth, in lessons learned, in quiet transformations that don't fit into a Facebook post. Psychologists call this present moment awareness. They're not obsessed with aging or achieving things by a certain deadline. Time isn't their enemy. It's just passing. And they're okay with that. While most people use birthdays as existential checkpoints, asking, "What have I accomplished this year?" or "Am I where I should be?" these individuals have released themselves from that pressure. They don't fear getting older because they're not racing against time. They're moving with it. And that mindset? That's rare. But here's where it gets complicated. Because not everyone who dismisses their birthday is doing it from a place of peace. Some are protecting themselves. Maybe they grew up with disappointing birthdays. Maybe their parents forgot. Maybe celebrations were always overshadowed by family drama. So instead of hoping for something better and risking the hurt, they rewrote the script entirely. They decided, if it doesn't matter, it can't hurt me. Psychologists call this adaptive meaning-making. It's a coping mechanism. They turned pain into philosophy. They took control of the narrative by removing the expectation altogether. And while that protects them, it also means they carry an invisible wound that nobody sees. So when someone says, "I don't celebrate my birthday," there are layers to that statement. Sometimes it's confidence, sometimes it's healing, and sometimes it's both. There's another side to this too. Some of these people have a low need for social recognition. They're not driven by applause or attention. They're driven by purpose, by contribution. by the quiet satisfaction of living according to their values. Being the center of attention for a day feels unnecessary to them, almost uncomfortable, because they've learned that real fulfillment doesn't come from being celebrated. It comes from the work you do when nobody's watching. And that's a level of maturity most people never reach. Because we've been taught that to matter, we must be noticed. But these people know the truth. Meaning doesn't need witnesses. You know what's beautiful about people who don't celebrate their birthdays? They've figured out how to celebrate life every day. They don't need a specific date to feel special because they've learned to find joy in the ordinary. In the morning coffee, in the sunset they didn't photograph, in the quiet evening with no plans. They're not waiting for permission to feel good about themselves. They're not waiting for validation. They're just living fully, quietly, unapologetically. And maybe that's the real lesson here. That you don't need a birthday to matter. You don't need a celebration to prove your worth. You don't need the world to remember you to know that you exist. Because the people who truly see you, they don't need a calendar reminder. So the next time someone tells you they don't care about their birthday, don't pity them. Don't assume they're sad or lonely or unloved. They might just be more grounded than most. They might have found peace in the spaces between milestones. They might know something the rest of us are still learning. That you don't need a day to feel special. You already are. And that quiet confidence, that's not indifference. That's freedom. If you love psychology that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew, hit subscribe. Because we're not just talking about behavior. We're decoding what it means to be human.